for the last interview for the .NET Foundation Board nominees of the hour. There will be more interviews coming up. You can see the schedule on the .NET Foundation site. So now we are continuing our tour around the world, and we're heading to New Zealand to talk to Jeffrey Chilberto. Huh, there he is. Hello, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good, nice to see you. Jeffrey the gamer.
Yeah.
Game developer.
Gamer, all sorts of things. All sorts of things.
Yeah. Well, I just see you have a lot of involvement with helping other people learn gaming and bringing kids into coding that way, and adults as well.
Yeah. Well, it's a passion of mine, a desire to just to help others to get into programming, really.
Awesome. And especially kids, that's the lure, that's the hook usually.
Yeah. It's funny. Recently I've been just when you hear people ask, what do you want to do when you grow up, there's so many kids who say, I want to make games, and
they don't say
really
I want to be database back-end system administrator or whatever. Yeah. I always find that when I get invited to talk to 13-year-olds, they're like, oh, we don't care, we just want to know how to develop games.
Yeah, and that's really that's what got me into programming, but programming on an Atari, on an old Atari, but it just was too hard. so hard. I mean, imagine it, I struggle now thinking back to the days before we had Google and learning how to code. Before we could search.
Oh, yeah, I'm old. Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine? You physically had to have a book and then help that was on your desktop. It was,
I think, gives us now more ability, or maybe that has to do with why I will spend 4 days trying to solve a problem before I just ask.
Yeah. The answer is usually there. It's just one search away.
Yes. So they gave us some fun ideas for some get to know you a little better questions. So I'm going to throw this one at you, which is, if you could compare yourself to any animal, what would it be and why? It sounds like the dating game, I know, but
so that's a hard one. So probably if I had to compare myself, it's probably the owl.
Ooh.
And the main reason is because my impression of an owl, I don't know any that well, but my impression of an owl is more of the observer, more someone who watches what's going on and then reacts, as opposed to the what would be the otter that's always out there busy, always doing things, even though might not, it's good things or not, it's just things, just constantly move, where I'm a bit more the one the one in the room who will be more observing what's going on and then contribute, as opposed to what's the other one, the lioness in the crowd. I don't know. I don't know it.
I don't know
the other animals.
I get what you're saying. Instead of just talking the whole time and not listening too. I think that, an owl observing, listening, watching.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've been watching a couple of the different interviews, and it's always interesting to hear people's answers to these different questions.
Well, that's why I gave you the other question.
Yeah. I heard the superpowers. One. Yeah. So.
All right. So here come the real questions. So most importantly, why, Jeffrey, are you running for the .NET Foundation Board?
Yeah, the main reason, and it's probably the same reason for a lot of people, is just to contribute back to the .NET community, really. So the two aspects in particular that I'm particularly passionate about would be the helping those that have these great ideas and that have put a lot of effort into building up a product, to how to actually support them and bring that forward. That's one aspect. And of course, the other aspect, which you've already touched on, is how do we expand upon influencing others to get onto .NET, and through user groups and also just other initiatives where people are going out there and getting either the kids getting into coding, or maybe even those who have done a career change, moving into .NET, because it's hard. It's hard to get started.
Yeah.
It's very complex stuff.
Yeah.
So
To make it
so
welcoming in a lot of ways, right? The community aspect and the technical aspect as well.
yeah.
Sounds like. So, what is your background with the foundation itself?
Mostly as a consumer, really. I've done some, project edits and things like that. As far as just, but it's mostly been on documentation and just what I feel is sort of supporting the project. Just as I go through the help, if there's an issue that I see or it could use clarification, then add to it. So that's the main thing. Um, and the this year I got involved with the outreach. What is it called? The outreach committee.
Oh,
So
the
just being
Delta
involved,
Foundation
yeah,
out.
with the
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And again, that's more about just how do we kind of expand the exposure, and how do we support the user group. So that's been interesting. But and the other side, of course, is just as a developer, consuming some of the projects that we have. Uh, Everything from the core ones to like AutoMapper and Identity Server and some of the other more popular ones. So yeah, it's
And
so
you have some experience and understanding of how things work within the foundation. So that's great.
yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah, and I guess as part of that, I do know what it's like to have these great ideas and these projects that I through the years I've had so many unsuccessful ones that a lot of it is I didn't have support. I wasn't able to actually connect with other individuals who have maybe a similar, maybe around on the other side of the world they're doing something similar and they're trying to solve the same problem. So being able to collaborate with those individuals and drive forward something that's you know um, able to add value to other people, I think it's great. Really believe in it.
That's a really good perspective that I haven't heard yet about the ability of the foundation to connect developers working on their open
Mm.
source projects. That's really good insight. So with respect to the .NET community, what kind of contributions have you made?
It's mostly been through blogging, really.
Books?
Well,
Articles?
yeah, books.
Yeah,
So I've written a couple of books. So that the books, that's sort of a new thing for me. So I'm learning the ropes. So I'll try to keep the story short, but probably 6 years ago, I was cutting my teeth with Azure functions and different aspects of Azure, and I noticed that there wasn't like a community. I didn't notice a community blog site, for developers. There's lots of different individuals out there, but I thought, oh, be good. So I contacted someone that I knew over at Microsoft, and we started the Azure Developer Community blog. Back then it was on MSDN blogs. Now it's over on TechNet Community. So that's sort of So that's my main blogging site. Just adding articles related to .NET development there.
or
Um,
creating a community.
well, yeah, creating a
Hire
community.
the community to
Yeah,
exist. That's great.
yeah. So
That's a
so
contribution.
yeah. So really, it's mostly been through through blogging, really, and then there's of course, user groups, and I do try to present when possible, but you know mostly it's just, again, as a member. Um, yeah.
So, last question. What experience do you have that would lend itself to you being a board member?
That's an interesting one, because this would be my first member of a board. So it would just be on life experiences. Just obviously being a developer, entrepreneur, a business owner, and also being involved with communities where it is for the most part made up of a lot of volunteers.
Yeah.
And so along those lines, just recognizing probably I guess a skill of mine would be to be able to recognize other people's motivations for being involved, and though we would love to push people very hard to contribute, a lot of it is out of a desire to contribute. And so having sensitivity to that and knowing not to demand too much, but then at the same time being able to accept when people are putting up their hands saying, hey, I want to get involved and I want to contribute.
And it looks like you've been, I'm looking over here, just verifying what
Yeah, I was
I'm
wondering what you're
hearing.
looking at. Yeah.
Yeah, it's my other monitor.
Mhm.
But you've been involved in these other community organizations, so you have some experience.
Well, yeah, and along those lines, and that's really where having and all those organizations have been situations where the resources have been really limited, and so
Mhm.
recognizing where you want to invest and where you don't want to invest, and almost where to get the most gain from the least amount of resources, and like I was saying before, also you do come across individuals who are very keen to get on board and to contribute, but are for whatever reason they they're unsure how to, if that makes sense, and so helping those individuals, almost guiding on getting them to be able to contribute, I think is essential for these more charitable organizations, or more organizations which don't have big corporate financing behind them,
Yeah,
where or a business driver, more altruistic goals. Yeah.
that's great. That's great. Jeffrey, it was so good talking to you.
Nice meeting you.
Uh, Good luck with your nomination.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate
I
it.
hope to, when we're all moving around the world again, cross paths with you.
Sounds good.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. Well, that wraps it up for this hour of interviewing our .NET Foundation nominees, board nominees. So what's next? Do I just say goodbye? I'm such a professional. Yep. Goodbye. Thank you so much. And thanks to the guys for chatting.